Rice and Beans, welcome for another episode. Sorry we weren't there last week, but we're coming right at you today with
David Park. Hello, everyone.
And hi, David. We're glad to have you today.
I'm glad to be here.
So, what ethnocultural ethnicity are you representing today?
Today, I am representing South Korea.
All right. So, let's talk about South Korea. First of all, let's distinguish it from North Korea.
Yes. So there's South Korea and North Korea, as people know. They're also... Yeah, so we have the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, which is actually North Korea, contrary to popular belief. And then you have the Republic of Korea, which is South Korea.
Very interesting. I wonder why they both have such similar names.
Maybe because they were the same country up until, let's say, about 60s. Actually, not, it wasn't that far, but like 70-ish years ago.
Wow. Did not know that. All right. So, what is your relation to Korea?
My parents were born and raised in South Korea. My mom in a small sort of village, whereas my dad grew up in Seoul, the capital.
Oh, cool. And how did they meet?
They actually met when they went to college in Urbana-Champaign.
In where?
Illinois.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, they both went to university in the States.
It's a small world. That's very cool. So that means that you are a American.
Yes, I am an American-born citizen, born in Morgantown, West Virginia.
All right. So there you have it, Rice and Beans, folks. We have a Korean American here, and we have a Colombian American as well, and we're both talking. All right. Let's get a little bit into Korean culture here.
All right.
So, I mean, if you bring up Korea to anyone, the first thing they think about is, Kim Jong-un and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to talk about that because that's not South Korea. That's not the Republic of Korea. We're going to talk about the Republic of Korea. So, what is the most Korean thing you could think of?
The most Korean thing I can think of is probably kimchi,
Kimchi.
which is fermented cabbage.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very famous food that a lot of people know.
Yeah. And how do you serve it? What does it go with? What's the role of it in the culinary experience?
So it has actually many different purposes, and it actually tastes different for how long it's aged for. The older it is, the more sour it gets. Generally served as a side dish with rice and like other things, but can be also used to cook several dishes such as kimchi jjigae, and jjigae means like a sort of stew. It's also used in other cooking dishes as well.
So, I mean, for us here in Baltimore, and I guess in other places along the Northeast or wherever they have them around the United States, we're familiar with Korean barbecue as a sort of our gateway into Korean culture.
Mm-hmm.
And something that we've noticed from experiencing this ourselves is the huge array of little tiny dishes that are served at the beginning of these, or actually in conjunction with the, I guess, main event where they grill the meat. And can we go a little bit into what these little things are?
Yeah, sure. So those little small like side dishes are called banchan, which is essentially translated into side dishes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people sort of see it as this like appetizer, while like the meat's cooking, or you can even eat it with the meat.
Yeah.
So kimchi is one of them. You'll have bean sprouts. You'll have fish cake. And all of these things are served with the main dish, Korean barbecue, which also can be separated into different things like pork, beef, and everything like that. One of the most popular dishes is samgyeopsal, which if you've been to Korean barbecue, you most likely got that.
That's really cool. Good to know that. Now I can order it in Korean, if I could remember that. I'll give it a shot. Anyway, back to Korea, South Korea specifically. So South Korea seems to have a vibrant entertainment culture.
Yes.
In terms of outputting music that's heard around the world. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Sort of Korean pop groups?
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. So it's a world phenomenon known as K-pop. Everybody's like knows of it or has even heard some of it. I think it actually really came into America through a popular music video called
Yep.
Gangnam Style.
Oh yeah. Who is this by?
Psy. His name is Psy.
How do you spell that for the listeners who would have never heard of this before?
PSY.
All right.
Yeah.
Super.
Yep.
So he put K-pop on a main stage, on the world stage here.
I would say yes.
Okay.
And
what characterizes K-pop?
So K-pop generally has like this sort of upbeat pop feel to it. It's famous for its dances. It's famous for its like, groups.
Yeah.
A lot of people have favorite members in the group.
Oh yeah.
There's like fans and everything like that, like fan clubs, like
So
official ones.
kind of like One Direction.
Yeah, I would say it's similar to that. The main difference being that One Direction, they don't really have like this choreographed dance for their songs.
So each song is choreographed in these groups?
Yes.
So not only is everyone singing, but everyone is basically performing then.
Yes.
That's really cool. That's kind of like what artists at the caliber of Beyonce or Lady Gaga or Chris Brown, or just people who sing and dance, multiplied by a factor of however many members there are in the group.
Yep.
That's really cool, but I wonder if this is sort of related to the whole group as being more powerful than the singular person that's quite prevalent in Eastern culture.
So it's interesting because these K-pop groups, they'll have these, that each song is sort of gives like each person in the group an opportunity to have some sort of solo or some like where they're the main vocalist, right?
Yeah.
Each group is going to have like a rapper most likely or multiple rappers. And so you'd like to believe that there isn't any like main person and it is this sort of group that sings together and works together and dances together.
So we're having in summary, we have a cohesive group, but each one has their individual voice.
Yes.
And so you'll see fangirls and guys they'll have their favorite member of the group, but it's not just a purely aesthetic one. It's that they really enjoy when those people have their solo moments and they have their own flavors. That's something to investigate. That's your homework assignment, guys. We're looking up K-pop this week.
It's also actually interesting because for these like regular singers and stuff like that, the only opportunity you get to really see them outside of performing is like maybe like a radio interview, or like a small guest appearance or something, right? But these K-pop groups, a lot of the times they'll be shown on variety shows where you can really see their personality. Which is
cool.
why, that's why people are like, oh, this is my favorite.
So they're not just artists, but they're also just celebrities.
Yes.
Okay, and then people really fangirl over them. That's kind of interesting. That's one way to entertain yourself, I guess, to follow around these people, but they actually have talent. They're not just famous because they're famous. Kardashian. But, so something else that when comes to mind when I think of Korean is just this dynasty of. You see where I'm going with this? This dynasty of gaming ownage across many different games. League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Overwatch, you name it. Why is South Korea so good at video games?
I would say that one of the biggest influencers is the sort of culture there. Like the work ethic and everything like that. And another thing is that they have these PC cafes. Not only that, but Korea has the fastest internet in the entire world.
Holy God! Whoa! I didn't know that. I think that's my favorite fact so far. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that? Fastest internet.
I honestly couldn't tell you as to why they have the fastest internet.
That's good to know. If I ever need to download something big, just to fly over to Korea. Okay, so that's one contributor.
And then having these PC cafes, a person will go to school or whatever, and in their free time, they'll maybe head over to one of these internet cafes where they'll just spend like hours and hours just playing these games.
Do they pay by the hour? Do they bring their own computer? Is it just Wi-Fi?
So they do pay by the hour. There's these gaming PCs that are set up in these cafes.
Yeah.
Generally, we'll have like the best specs or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And anything required that for you to play these games. So I think the earliest case of Koreans really excelling in the game world was StarCraft 2, or StarCraft in general.
Yeah.
And StarCraft, if you've ever played it, you have to have very good hand-eye coordination. You have to have a lot of finger speed, just to get as many actions per minute in as possible. So that really set the pace for this whole Koreans dominating the esports world.
Yeah, and honestly, something that I used to be on a science competition team, and we would win consecutively. But one of the motivators for doing that was the fact that we had to uphold that standard. So perhaps this Korean standard of being dominant in video games stems from the fact that they're dominant in video games. That could be one force.
Most definitely. There's a sort of culture behind it where if you're the best, then you want to stay the best, right? And there's been many cases where you can see, not necessarily in the professional scene, but just in the general gaming scene, where a lot of Koreans, if their community, or if Koreans aren't the best in this particular video game, they might just drop it completely.
Oh. Wow.
Yep. So for one example is Dota 2, which is very similar to League.
Yeah.
And Koreans dominate they did at least in League of Legends. And they tried the same thing for Dota 2, and when they realized, we are just not as good as these other players, there's almost no real competitive Dota 2 scene in Korea.
Wow. Very interesting. All right. That was cool. So moving on. Something else that I've noticed around campus is that, let's talk about fashion for a little bit. Korean fashion. So I occasionally see Korean students walking around campus dressed in these garbs that I have never seen before. They're quite interesting. Do you know anything about Korean fashion? I know you're a streetwear fan yourself.
So just like anywhere, it really depends on where you're living. If you're in Korea, for example, the mindset of fashion is very hive-minded. Where if one person is wearing some article of clothing and they're famous, chances are you're going to start seeing that being sold everywhere. The biggest example I can think of is when a popular Korean drama came out called Goblin. And
we should have talked about K-dramas too. All right, let's talk about that next.
But yeah, a large fashion aspect of Goblin was these. All of the main characters wore these really long winter coats.
Oh yeah, really long.
Yep.
Seen a lot of those around.
And after that, just everyone ended up buying these winter coats. You can't miss it no matter where you go.
Yeah, even over here in America.
Yeah. But one example of Korean hive mind fashion culture that I personally have witnessed is my spending time in Korea. I was there for a month, and I saw the fashion change at least 3 times.
Whoa! For a month?
Yep.
In 1 month?
Yep.
Just on a large scale, many people.
Definitely.
That's really cool. I wonder how they do it so quickly. Because they're so quick to adapt.
People want to fit in. They want to have the latest fashion trends and everything like that.
Do you think that's part of the collectivist mindset?
I think it definitely has a part to do with it.
Okay.
But in my time there was this black and white sort of fashion trend where I saw it in a street shop window, and then that week almost everyone I saw was wearing it. And at this point, streetwear is definitely really popular.
Yeah.
So you'll see Koreans here wearing Supreme, wearing Balenciaga. Just all of these ridiculous high-end streetwear is actually what's even taking more precedent over streetwear.
That's so it's an ironic construct. Streetwear is not supposed to be high end. It's not. But anyway, so we're approaching the end of the time, but we're gonna extend it because we got to talk about K-dramas here. Because something that, as a Latin American myself, we take a lot of pride in our novelas, which are just basically drama shows with high emotions and high engagement of the audience. But when I first saw a K-drama, I was like, okay, the Koreans got us again. Those things are ridiculous. What do you know about K-dramas?
So I think that K-dramas are very entertaining. I've only watched a few myself, but there's this sort of formula that they follow, and it works very well.
It does.
Where you'll have like two romantic interests, like this sort of love triangle going on, and it always ends in this sort of like, oh, I want this person to win or over like this person.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's very engaging, I think, for the audience.
Yeah, there's a lot of cliffhangers as well, even within the episodes that I've noticed. I've seen a few of them myself, just a few episodes every now and then. Would you be able to shout out a few that you might know in case our audience members would like to check them out?
Well, there is definitely the one I mentioned before, Goblin. Another popular one that I haven't seen, but a lot of people recommend, I believe, is called Secret Garden. Famous for one scene in particular where a girl is doing sit-ups and the guy's holding her feet down, and then he like gets really close and then they almost kiss, and everyone screams at that part. They also have different ones like you're pre-med, so this one might be interesting to you. It's called Cain and Abel, not to be messed up with the Bible story of Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
But it's two doctors, they're half brothers, and they're both going for the same female lead.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's interesting. I liked it a lot.
All right. Well, thank you for painting a nice portrait of Korea, of South Korea, by the way, the Republic of Korea, not to be confused with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. That's a complete different world. At least after the 60s.
Before that, definitely. It was probably around between World War I and II. Okay.
Well, this is not North Korea. For our North Korea interview episode special, stay tuned for a future episode. Thank you for joining us this week. This has been Rice and Beans with
David Park.
And don't forget, we got our music selections this week. There's a lot of great selections, handpicked. We put way too much effort into choosing each individual song. Like, sometimes I get stressed. I wake up in the middle of the night like, should I have put that one song on there? But anyway, see you next week.